Okay, calling the meeting to order. Today is February 14th, Friday, and the time is 11:04 a.m. A quorum is present, and all but one board member, Lance Pelosi, is present at the meeting. One is present via video. The meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting was posted as required by law. Okay, so we are going to, as the meeting was called to order, we're going to jump right into public comments.
Sure.
And
we have two individuals here to speak. You'll go first?
I will go first. So I had to scratch out some no individual names or anything were mentioned, but
well, thanks for coming. We're glad to have you.
yeah, thank you. My name is Abby McNeil. I'm just going to read this because otherwise I will go all over the place. But so I'm not a public speaker. I'm a stay-at-home mom at 17 years, who I guarantee you will probably cry and get emotional because speaking to y'all terrifies me. And in the end, this is my babies we're talking about. Their family has given everything.
We want to hear from you.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, just go slow.
Our family has given everything to the FCA Louisville campus for 7 years. And then we were in ResponsiveEd before that at another school. I know our sons are classmates and friends and do things together. As parents, we've done everything we can to instill the characteristics of honor, virtue, and integrity that the administration preaches and demands of the students. Sadly, last year we saw the true character and leadership of FCA. Time after time, we've seen how leadership does not hold themselves to the same standards that they kind of demand and preach of the students. We've come to the sad conclusion after withdrawing 2 of our kids in 1 year. Our daughter is a junior, she left, and then our youngest son is a 7th grader, and he left at Christmas break. There was no response from administration. We've just come to the conclusion that we're just a number. It's a business, and my kids don't matter. Our major concerns regarding the FCA Louisville administration and the safety of my kids don't matter. As long as there is another seat in line to fill, we just honestly, sadly feel that we don't matter. So my question to y'all is, am I right? Do the major concerns going on at FCA Louisville matter? If so, who on this board do we go to in order to get answers? Who holds those at FCA Louisville accountable when they refuse to answer parents' concerns? When policies and procedures are blatantly ignored, who is our ear and our advocate for our child? As the AD at FCA Louisville continually and boldly, systematically lies and destroys the athletic program, while leadership is fully aware and does nothing to hold him accountable, who do we go to for answers? When student after student withdraws and no one in administration at FCA Louisville acknowledges or seems to even care, who on this board do we go to for an exit interview? My daughter's junior class, there was probably over 10 students that withdrew before their junior year. And I believe there was only one exit interview done, and that was because the parent demanded it. In December, my youngest son was knowingly left at an off-site location, and to date, no one at FCA Louisville will honestly own what occurred or respond to our concerns or requests from documentation. In fact, administration at FCA will not even acknowledge me now in person. Who sees this as a problem on this board? Please give me a name who will hear and address the major problems going on at the FCA Louisville campus. Gotta be honest, I'm terrified of the retaliation that this may have on my middle son, who's left there now. Just as a result of speaking to y'all today, retaliation is a big thing at the school. And despite many parents bringing that to leadership's attention, every parent gets the same response of, oh, I've never heard this before, you're the first person to bring this to our attention. Same thing. My middle son is there right now only for baseball. But in 7 years, at that campus, Nolan, who is our middle son, has never received a single demerit, but I know historically my actions could greatly impact him. And that's something that we really will be watching for. While I really want to skip this and report it to TEA, I'm really hoping this board will finally see the severity of in leadership at the campus and take action. I want to know, like, who do I go to? You know, is it all of y'all? Is there one person just to file major grievances?
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. May I ask you one question?
Yes.
Have you filed a grievance? Have you filled out the form or
I'm not.
at any point in time?
I'm not. Rodney in HR called me this summer and spoke to me on an issue that was brought to his attention. And I laid out for him every concern I've had. To which all of that he asked, does Mr. Harris know? And I responded yes to everything.
Do you mind filling a
I
grievance
do
form?
not mind at all.
That's the best. That's the process. That's the best way to have your grievance heard.
Okay.
And we will be watching for retaliation. We don't tolerate that.
Right.
So, it's a concern. Anytime somebody's bringing something. Do any of you have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned athletics. Is it broader than athletics, or is it your primary concern with the athletics program?
It's broader. I think there's so many things that happen in athletics. I sat in meetings. I volunteered almost a full-time job last year up there. Sat in meetings after meetings with the AD and the headmaster. Headmaster is fully aware of everything that's going on at that campus. Kids are leaving the school or no longer playing sports because of EAD.
So the other thing is when you fill out the curriculum, there are processes within that escalate.
Right.
You go. It's also very helpful to be very specific as to what those items are that are causing it. And you mentioned also that your son was left off site. So was there a bus involved and he wasn't able to get on the bus, or what was some of the details around that?
They were at Westside practicing for their Christmas program, and he asked a teacher if he could go to the restroom. The teacher said yes. Another teacher asked him, where are you going? And he told him. Then another teacher, 7th grade teacher, asked him again, where are you going? He was gone 5 minutes, and he came back, and they had left him.
The 3 teachers knew.
3 teachers knew what happened.
Okay.
One of the teachers basically responded and apologized that my son didn't get to walk home with his classmates, because there was one FCA, a 5th grade teacher there, but she was on her way out and she had no idea that was there. We've sent emails, we've requested documentation, we've requested an incident report to the teachers, to Mr. Misko, to Mr. Peros, and our last email was sent December 19th, and they won't answer.
No response.
In fact, I was up at the school yesterday, and Mr. Misko looked down and wouldn't even acknowledge me. So,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
And as far as your public speaking skills, are pretty good.
No, I'm shaking and all.
I've done it for years, and I still do. So.
Thank you for coming to speak to us.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thinking I was gonna. No, I
So my name is Lisa Clausen. My daughter also attends Founders Class in Louisville. This is her 7th year. She's in 11th grade. I'm probably one of your biggest proponents out in the marketplace about what you guys are trying to accomplish here. I'm in banking. I serve on committees with the University of Texas at Austin. I'm in private banking. I deal with some of the most affluent business owners, and I'm always talking about my daughter and the mission y'all have set out, because I firmly believe in it. That's why we uprooted her and moved her 7 years ago. My husband is also the varsity baseball coach at Founders. This will be his 2nd year as the head coach. First year, he was the pitching coach. And I'm here. I've had numerous issues along the way, and I am all about documentation because I handle money, so I have emails like you wouldn't believe, and I've saved every single one of them. And I have witnessed the retaliation that Evie speaks on. It got to the point that I had to go up because they were so harsh on my daughter and defeating her spirit that I had to go up and say, look, this has become a mental detriment to my daughter. So I'm not here to talk about that, but I can tell you for a fact it occurs when you hold them accountable. They don't like that. And I believe in following the rules of engagement of going up the chain of command, but it stops and it never gets over here is my impression, which is why we're here today. So I'm here because I want to talk to you about the athletics and extracurricular budget that I see that's on your agenda today. I went through and I looked. 18 to 19, I saw it was about 312,000, and this year it looks like it's 231,000, which is a drop of almost 26%. I have no idea how many schools that encompasses or how many students, but I can tell you these kids need a way to interact, to be social, to be well-rounded, and athletics fills a big portion of that. My daughter plays volleyball, she plays softball, and as I mentioned, my husband's baseball. So I only found out at our athletic booster meeting, November of 2019, so 3 months ago, that stipends for coaches had been stopped, not just this year, but the previous year. My husband last year, he's doing this for free. He just loves the game and wants to instill a passion in each kid. So he asked that they donate the stipend back to the varsity baseball program last year. I kept up with all the money because that's what I do. I did a balance sheet, I did an income statement because I told them you are spending other people's money and you have to account for every single dollar. You're renting fields, which I believe y'all have 7 schools within a 25-mile radius with nowhere that these kids can practice. So the majority of the players' fees and the fundraising that they do all goes for field rental. And, equipment, forget equipment. Our football team last year had $800 spent on equipment. By the end of the year, we had so many players injured that they were playing both sides of the ball. One kid had 2 concussions. It's becoming a detriment. So you either have to say, yes, we want to go into sports, or no, we don't. Right now, we're doing fundraising for a batting cage at the campus, both with softball and baseball. The Boosters has offered to match whatever they raise. Today's the deadline, so y'all feel free to go on the website and make a donation. But they've offered to match because that could help save expenses down the road. It's only a $13,000 budget. My fear is that we end up, we've been told it's been approved by ResponsiveEd. The PTO was told that previously when they built the big playground with that ship, and I think for years it sat somewhere over here. I mean, they spent 13 grand on that, and that went to nothing because then they found out that RES had not approved it. So I want to make sure that somebody knows they're going to be building a batting cage on the campus. We've been told it's been approved. Hopefully it is. If not, please look into it. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention was the athletic director. A lot of people are leaving sports because of him. I have tracked every single dollar, and every single time I submit what I have given to him, the numbers are all over the place, and it's just fishy. It's very fishy. And again, there's no accountability. Karos knows because I have sent all of my emails with my spreadsheets to him. I mean, we're talking between having a $2,000 surplus to a $200 loss. When you're only running a $6,000 budget, that's a lot of discrepancy. So I just don't know that I actually trust what he says, what he does, etc. And I just think that these kids have to have an outlet. Sports is so important. You talk about a community at the school. I mean, they can't even spend 30 minutes at lunch without getting yelled at for talking too much. And they want to go spend an hour after school and hit the ball with some friends and, have some camaraderie. And I'm worried that these programs are not going to exist. So, I don't know about the stipends. Now, what's funny is Carol sent an email to my husband saying that there are no stipends, that his boss had told him there are no stipends, that everything comes out of players' fees and fundraising. Yet, the athletic director had the softball coach and my husband both apply for positions with RES. He's completed it. I think he just has to do his fingerprints, but he went and did the birth certificate or the driver's license, social security card, all of that yesterday. In order to get approximately $2,000 paid to him, that I told him we will withhold enough to cover our tax burden and then donate the rest back to the program. But to me, it's like, why couldn't we just donate that? And how come Kuros doesn't know that that's an option? So there's some funny business going on with money. Y'all are spending it on new campuses like crazy, and I would encourage you, before you grow too fast, is to think about what you have and make sure that it's still the premier schools you're looking for. I mean, the city of Louisville will not even take our calls about renting a field. Y'all, your corporate headquarters is here. You have a school there. You have families. They won't even talk to us about renting their field. We go to Carrollton and pay top dollar to rent fields with Carrollton, which is, to me, it's ridiculous. $52 to rent a field for an hour and a half to practice with no lights. So they have to go straight after school. We try and do the games early so that there's no lights because that's an added. So I know that budget cuts need to be made, and maybe 5 office women working in the front office of the upper school to serve, 350 kids. Maybe there's an area there that we could cut versus athletic. Because the parents do a lot. We donate a lot of time, money, etc. We're vested in these schools until the point that you're done. So I just want you to think about what you're making.
Your comment. Thank you. Y'all for coming and appreciate it. You have any questions?
You may have said, I may have missed it, but so how long has this been going on?
How long which?
Problems with the AD, financial discrepancies. What's the time frame?
Wednesday. So the AD came on at the beginning of last year. And I served on the athletic booster board and was full-heartedly supporting. We had lots of great ideas.
In the beginning of last year, you said 28.
Yes.
2019.
Yes. Yes. Lots of ideas, lots of promises, no follow-through. And just, I worked with outside companies that were calling him on his lies. That was brought to the attention of Kara. Nothing. So I removed myself from the board. Our daughter transferred out, and then our middle son took it. I think I saw a lot whenever Butler was brought on board. When I was heavily involved, that's when I saw a lot. Probably too much.
Okay. Corey is taking detailed notes of Corey.
I'd be happy. That I have.
You have a grievance that you want to file?
No,
It's just general.
I think it's just general.
I mean, there's specific comments, but general
It's
comments.
just general. I would say maybe y'all should do a deep dive into that schools athletic. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. We're going to go on to other things. You can stay. It's open to the public if you'd like.
Good. I'll go back to
Thank
it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Shoulder. Who just came on Wednesday?
Coronavirus.
No. These are the guys who go to China. See you later. Thank you all.
Sorry.
Still recording.
Yes, do you want to do the executive report next, or do you
We're
want
going
to
to do tape.
taper? Okay. Okay.
Everyone has met Dr. Cutter.
Mhm.
Hello, everybody.
Taper, I think you were here 1 week when you did it last time.
I might have been, yes.
We are going to have training after the board meetings. We're going to go down and meet his academic team down on the second floor. But he's going to present, as required by law, a presentation of the taper report, which is Texas Academic Performance Report. We're not going to go down into all the details of this document for both charters that you have, if y'all want to, but we're going to give you a high-level overview. So thank you, Dr. Cutter, for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Like so many people right now, I am too suffering from a cold. It's nothing more than a cold. So we're all feeling safe and secure today. Annually, the state produces a summation of not just the PEIMS data we get, but the academic data that comes with it. They call it the taper reports. This is certainly data that comes in a variety of ways, but this is the state's way of pulling it together, and it generally is an outward-facing document. As I talk, you'll understand what I mean by that. What you'll see is STAR data, performance, and participation. This is summer of 2018. So this is 2 summers ago almost, those students. It's also those students in that fall that took any of these tests. And then, of course, the spring subsequent. So it's any of those students that were on our snapshot, that picture, are included as a part of the data that you will see in this report. You'll see student success, English language learners, attendance rate, high school completion, indicators of college, career, military readiness, and a financial report. Now, we get the components of this data a lot sooner than they're able to pull this all into one report. So for us, we use it as we get it. The other thing is, this is a picture of last year, right? We're in February of 1920 school year, and this is data from the end of the 18-19 data, and some of it recalls even 2017-18. So it's not as timely as we not only expect our schools to respond to data, but that we respond to data. Like I said, we get all these test scores sooner. We actually put them in, we review them, we work with our campus leaders, and we try to bring in some sort of district picture of it so that anybody that supports or has expertise can push in long before we get this. All right. Last year when I presented to you, I gave you this slide. In 17-18, this is how we broke up our 2 districts, including our virtual students. Our grades 3 through 8 virtual students were on the TCPA side, and we had a very strong cut between secondary students being on the PHS side. Last year, we did a combination. So we did have, in this report, students in virtual that were 3 through 12 that were reported on. And again, of course, we do have 9 through 12 students on the PHS side for virtual. All right. We're going to get into this a little more later, but I wanted to point out in accountability ratings, there are 3 large categories. Student achievement, of course, is 1, student progress or school progress, and then closing the gaps. We get grades on each one of those, and then we get an overall district grade. This year, our TCPA schools all received Bs across the board. Domain 1, Domain 2, Domain 3, they all got a B. Their scale score down there is 87 out of 100, 89, 89, and overall 89 out of 100 B. So we're very high B on the TCPA side. EHS. We have certainly a different accountability system because all our our PHS schools are alternative education sites. So how this is calculated is changed a little differently. What is not different, if you look at closing the gaps, 63 out of 100, when you get to domain 3, all the success that our students find when we look at student achievements are in the 3 highest categories. When we look at closing the gaps, it's only in the 2 highest categories. PHS, we don't have a lot of students that are at those upper tiers of academic excellence. The other thing is, what hurts us in this closing achievement gap is graduation rates. As I'll show you a little later, most of our students come to us at age 17 or above, right? Age 17, traditionally on track, that's the year you graduate high school. That's grade 12. We just get them at that point, and we get them for a reason. 1, they haven't been successful. 2, they haven't felt like they belong, or they've taken time away for life's, events, things like that. When they do come back and we help them get to graduation, we're already missing that cohort, so we don't reach the graduation expectations for that domain 3. It's tough on those kids to get that high grade. All right. Again, you did get a B though, so the district as a whole did very well. One thing they've added this year is you'll notice in the very first page when I think you just have printed out copies, is they've added a special education determination status. This is new. There's only 4 categories, all the way down to needs substantial interventions. They look at the data integrity, our compliance issues, they do an audit. You'll notice that in both our districts, we reach the highest status that's available. I'd contribute that too. We do have a solid special ed group. I mean, the team is amazing. Very, very high attention. So let's look at a couple of things that are fun to pull out of this that are success stories, pats on the back. This is our TCPA side. These are the various subjects. These are all the tests they take from all the grades, and these are the averages we did. The light blue, of course, is the year before. The dark blue is this year. You can see they actually did great in terms of improving in almost every area. Equally, when you put in the state averages, in almost every one, our schools are operating above the state average. One of the things that we've been focusing on in the last couple of years has been our college, career, and military readiness. There are a number of ways a student can be considered in this category. It's also domain 2, or domain 1, part 2, by the way. So they can take a test, any kind of combination of there that meets those minimum thresholds. They can get dual credit, get an associate's degree, industry-based certification. They could intend to enlist. There's a lot of different ways for students to be considered college, career, or military ready. If we take a look at the TCPA data in that area, we have almost 50% of our students taking a dual credit class. 10% of them get an associate's degree upon graduation. You can see a spike in our number of students when this data was taken, taking at least one CTE class. And military is held pretty steady, but 3% of our TCPA students have an intent to join the military. Now the report will pull out all of these. I wanted to focus on a few because I thought that they were interesting to look at. If we go to our PHS side, this is that same slide we showed from the data from the first one for TCPA. You'll see that they're relatively similar across the board. Not a lot of huge drops, not a lot of huge gains. The one here for us, and I talked about this last year, is becoming just a mainstay focus for us, is the Algebra 1, the generalized 9th grade class. All our students take it. It's one of those areas that we realize not just nationally is math poor when you take these tests, but for us in a PHS setting, it's independent study. They're basically working through these knowledge units at their pace, at their own time. We have people that pull up groups, help tutoring. We feel like by digging into this is where we can actually make the most impact on the students in 9th grade, the Algebra 1. When we talk about the 1,400 plus graduates from 2018, it's interesting to look at where these students are coming from. Demographically, this is how they break out. What's also interesting to look at is special populations. Of our graduates in 2018, 10% of them had an individual education plan. They were in special ed. Almost 55% of them were considered economically disadvantaged. 16% were second language learners, and almost 80% characterized as at risk. What's nice about this is we're graduating the students that in a lot of situations have been historically underserved. All right, here's the same slide with those for PHS, for those college, career, military readies. Here's a great opportunity for us. This is 2 years ago, remember. So this is where we have invested our time over the last year, looking at where our students can not only graduate, but graduate with options, graduate with a plan. Having an industry-based certification, CTE experience, dual credit, associate's degree. Right now, when it comes to dual credit and associate's degree, we don't have a lot of students in our PH system. We've never really promoted it as such, but we have spent time. Superintendent of the classical model, Robert Riggs, and our CCMR program managers, Kevin Seven, have spent a great deal of time kind of shaking the trees. trying to get partnerships so that not only can the TCPA side benefit from our college relationships and partnerships, but so too could our PHS. So I want to just dig in a little more with the CCMR because we do see a lot of opportunity for our kids in this area. Right now, any combination of a minimum score in reading and math would get them what we consider a point for CCMR. They'd be college ready. So if they were to get Texas Success Ignition test in reading a 351 or better, and you combine that with an SAT of 530 and math or better, that would get them a point. So it can be any combination. It doesn't have to be both ACTs or both SATs. What's even greater about this one is that House Bill 3, which was passed this year, will actually reimburse us for the cost of these tests. So starting this spring, if you're a junior and you've never taken the test before, not the pre, but the actual tests, we can get reimbursement for it, which is wonderful. So it's really at no cost. It's allowed us to kind of push you in and encourage more participation, set up testing dates for these students to take these. Now, what's interesting is, you know, the state kind of evolves every year. They change things and they develop. It used to be that all the student had to do back 2018 is take one class in CTE, and they were considered career ready, right? Then it was going to evolve into a coherent sequence of classes. You had to take 3, right? Health 1, Health 2, and Applied Health. And that would be considered, you know, career ready. Now they've moved to, I think, nearly like 217 individual paths for industry-based certifications, which is basically take at least one class, because they all have their own different prerequisites, take one career preparation class, and then write an exam that's recognized by the state, and then you get certification. So for example, we have welding in some of our schools. They do an applied welding class, and then they could take a welding certification. That would be considered industry-based certification. Like I said, there's like 214 of them this year. So, but they're changing it all the time. So this is for, you know, this will be reflected in 2021. This is a screenshot of a, of course, larger spreadsheet. Down the left, you will see all our PH schools, and then the existing industry-based certification programs we have at those sites right now. Now this, you can imagine with 36 PHS schools, building these partnerships is a little time consuming. It's also dependent on where they're located. We try to reach out to the local partners as best we can, but that's a lot of stomping the ground and, you know, creating those situations. If you were to scroll up and down, you'd see all the ones that are in place for 1920. Column E is, of course, what we plan to have at those sites next year. And then 2021, what we'd be adding. And then we have a 4-year plan that every one of our schools has at least one industry-based certification for students to take. What's also nice is you talk about schools that are in proximity. Down in the valley, for example, we may have FAR doing one industry-based certification and Mission doing a different one, and sharing those kids so that you know, we can build those classes, we have greater participation, we can offer them. You do have to have a minimum number of students to actually have a cohort of groups to actually do it. I'll tell you, patient care technician in the Valley right now is the most popular one. We have students that are taking it all the time, you know, cohorts of 20 kids. It's one of those, basically it's nurse assistant, but they can actually get their certification and come out and start working right away. It also gives them a leg up if they want to actually step into a licensure program, like to become an actual nurse. With this, they get a little bit of a head start.
Can I ask a question on that patient care? So, you know, growing up, I had vocational schools in the area. You know, one of the high schools had a large vocational school, and they were mainly focused on plumbing, electricity, mechanic shop, woodworking. Is that the new vocational approach? Is to the medical field's continuing to hire? You never see a vocational, let's, you know, make a mechanic or a plumber or electrician. At least I don't. Maybe you do. But is that really the direction that's going in with some potential college preparatory work?
Yeah. When we went to school, we had woodworking, we had auto shop, right? When we went through those cycles of budget reductions in public education over the last 2 decades, those were the first things to be cut. It was also really hard to hire the teachers to do them. I mean, it was skilled trade, and we weren't able to get those for a long time. So they have kind of come back into vogue in the past few years. We have a partnership with Trio Electric with 2 of our schools where we're actually putting kids through a pre-electrical program. So when they graduate, our partner will hire them, and has.
Yeah.
So we are bringing back the traditional ones that we thought of. But schools have started to reach out because, do you remember about 10 years ago, you heard secondary or higher ed say our kids aren't coming prepared, we're going to put them in remediation classes? They were doing the exact same thing, but pressuring us in different ways. Healthcare technicians was one of the ways that we saw the pressure nationwide. That's why it became such a great little program that we could start doing in high school. Other ones you see based on lack of demand, we weren't getting people going into the fire departments upon graduation. So the fire department's response was, hey, we'd like to create a fireman track, a career pathway in your high school. You'll see that one. Culinary. We have culinary arts programs in some of our high schools now because people aren't going down that road. So the industry has actually spoken to us sometimes and said, hey, listen, we're not getting these skilled positions. What if we do this? And those what if conversations have led to a lot of these partnerships that you see prevalent in most of our schools.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I hope that works out. 'Cause, I mean, just plumbing, electricity, electricians generally, and some of the others, I mean, they can make really good livings and have good careers in those. You know, it beats some of the other types of, you know, the food industry or other things that don't pay as well. Those pay very well.
What's funny is, so I work construction through high school and then in college, right, just to pay for a living. And I didn't take electrical in high school, but my buddy Bobby, he did. And we were working a construction site and we were on the same crew, and the foreman came over and says, any of you guys have electrical experience? Bobby raised his hand. We can see Bobby again. He got better shift work, he got better pay, he got on a different crew, all because he had taken electrical in school. I mean, that kind of stuff still happens.
Yeah. Well, and he probably didn't sweat nearly as much as you
I don't
guys
know.
laboring around back
Yeah,
and forth.
yeah. It was like, when we heard of him, it was all good stuff. So we're a little jealous. The last thing I want to talk about, the time we've invested in CCMR, is that our CSP grants from this past March allowed us to set up what we call regional counselors. Their job is to step into these schools and work with students on a graduation plan that includes having a CCMR credit. Their goal, and it's not every senior, it's every student will have a CCMR credit by the time they graduate. We get measured this year on just seniors, and that's where we started. But as of, I think, 2 weeks ago, they've kind of completed that push of seniors, and now they're expanding to juniors and sophomores. So they have divided up the state into 6 regions, and they all have a small number of schools, and basically just keep traveling and working with students and making sure the plan is to include this. There are 2 ways now to access it. A lot of times you just print out the PDF. The TEA system is getting a little more updated. It's a little more responsive. You can actually dig into it online. You can take a look at these things. Of course, we have 2 districts, so you guys have to have 2 numbers if you want to go in there. There's ways to search it. This is, of course, the easiest way. There's nothing that you're going to see in there that you don't get with this hard copy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question?
No more for me.
We're gonna do a little training later. Map clicker. You're gonna flip over to the other.
I'm trying. Oh, yeah.
So you know, just as you think about that, is there a way for, other than to post the attachments for these meetings, to have them appear in the video?
Yes.
And so,
Hold on.
They don't present. They don't. Right now, it's just a talking head board meeting.
Yes.
when the camera
Yeah,
seems
we
to
can
be
have-
right on me, it's probably unfortunate for everyone else to view it.
We can have marketing.
No, I can share. I can share it.
Yeah, I mean, it probably, if there are people
that's
watching it,
fine.
it'd be easier for them to follow what it is we're doing.
We can do that. I can do it with this. I'm fine. Okay.
So are we staying on the executive report here?
Yes.
You're just gonna finish up?
Okay.
So while we're pulling that up, you have a 10-page or 12-page little booklet here that you see. I think they all have Betsy DeVos's Secretary of Education's name on it. We use the same format for Chairman Taylor from Senate Ed, but just wanted to give you a copy of this. We did have Senator Taylor this week, a couple of days ago in Houston. I'm going to show you a few pictures, and then a week ago, almost 2 weeks now, we had a surprise visit. We got a couple of weeks heads up, so we've known about a month. Secretary DeVos was coming to our school in San Antonio. Sure. She had been to Texas 2.5, 3 years ago to visit 2 ISD schools, Dallas and Fort Worth. This is the first term and the second trip. So to have her with us. Show you a video real quick. This is our leadership conference we just had in December at the Westin at the Galleria. We would like to invite you, and we'll get you actual dates of this December, but we hope you can come next year. We're going to do this each year. They really liked it. Campus directors coming in, so we would love you all to join us. It was a 2-day conference. We're going to show you a quick video that we have posted out there for all the staff, all the teachers, office staff to get excited and want to watch the videos.
You did it at the Western Galleria?
Yes, sir.
That's good. I did a couple of events there when I had an
Beautiful
office down
Christmas
there.
time.
It was great.
One more click. It'll run.
A little cheaper than the Gaylord.
Just click. Sorry. Can we go back?
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Why in the plane?
No?
I don't know. Should be.
Okay. It is.
Well,
We'll send you a copy of it. Please watch it. You'll enjoy it.
So Chuck, who all
other way.
was invited to that leadership conference?
This time we did not have regional directors, but we had superintendents, campus directors, executive staff, VPs, and next year we'll have a little bigger room. We'll be able to pull in the 15 or so regional directors.
So how
it's
many people
campus
were there?
leadership. We had about 100.
About 100, right at 100.
About 100.
Okay.
So
Here, I can pull it up another way. I don't know why I did it. It worked 100 times.
Is that the one where Chris spoke at?
Yeah.
Okay.
so I was linked
I
in.
did. Yeah.
Good job. You need to exit out and then run it some other way. But I can move on if it's going to take a while. You gonna move on?
Yeah.
You can exit out and then run it the other traditional way, or
I was trying.
escape, get you out. Now we have nothing. There we go.
Now we've
Okay.
got nothing. I don't know why.
Go right off to the right. Then it's here. We got something.
Okay, Ben's gone.
Maybe, I guess. Good thing.
This is actually.
Who runs tech here?
Yeah, so.
Connected to Lee Valley, and without you, we couldn't do anything we're doing to serve 20,000 plus.
To make a real significant difference in a child's life, there has to be a high quality relationship. I just don't know your name. I just don't call you out from time to time. I'm not going to acknowledge you. I'm going to do something about you.
Well, we have these scholars in front of us that are trying to accomplish great things. And so it's our job to also listen to them and find out what are their desires, what are their hopes, and what are their dreams.
We're not getting them ready to consume. We're getting them ready to add value. We're getting ready for them to be good people. Virtual learning is still a little bit undefined. It's gray. And so if we can get some successes and we can show people how this works, they will start going, let's build our policies and our laws and our rules around what they are doing because it is working. Is our organization not similar to a society? Aren't there different individuals doing different things, working together to common goals, common function? And they thought, let's take those principles from free societies and let's see if we can apply that to our company.
No adult spends more time with those kids outside the home than the teacher. You are supervising life changes.
We applied for $15 million to open new campuses across the state of Texas. And this is the first time we've ever received this grant. As Chuck mentioned yesterday, it is the second largest first time report to a grantee.
Walk into a career campus and you'll hear babies crying. And you'll see aides and teachers, including myself, back holding on to the baby or child while that's because again, that's the priority. They have every ounce successful, and if we have to sit there and babysit for a little bit, that is okay.
Your role as the leader, the environment you're creating for these students, it is going to forever change the course of the lives of every student that walks through your door.
You
The
put that
most
on LinkedIn.
expansive, most diverse, most successful charter holder in America. Think about it. We've got dropout recovery school, a credit recovery school, we have classical liberal arts schools, STEM academies, we have standalone high schools, CTE, we have P-Tech models, early college, high school, virtual, we're urban, we're suburban. Again, I don't know of any other organization serving all population that we are. Again, I appreciate it and I admire you for what you do every day in schools. A great conference. I encourage you, if you have a chance to watch some of the videos, they're up there on that internet side, right? They public. Or internet for sure. All right, we're gonna pull back up the PowerPoint and give you an update on the lottery. The lottery was held in the last few weeks. Here in this building, we had several people join us online. And, clicker here. You can see the seats available, seats filled, and then the wait list. I will show you some other schools on the next slide with a total. You can see Corinth 512 on a waiting list, Carrollton 103, Denton. A lot of people in Denton, we're going to talk about Denton later, a lot of them feed into Corinth. Flower Mound, Frisco, 1,000, 1,100. Leander, almost 1,000, close to Round Rock. Louisville, 655.
And those seats filled and seats available, that's not full capacity, that's just for the particular year,
Right.
is that? Yeah.
Particular grade, right? So a total here, 40, almost 4,200 on a waiting list. So the need is great. The need is there. People want into the schools and they have serious interest. I'm telling you a second ago, we're thrilled to have Secretary DeVos visit Schertz down by San Antonio. Came Tuesday, the day of the State of the Union, which she came to our school, and then she got back to D.C. and sitting in state President Trump. Came in, we had a round table. She, very personable lady. She walked around and spoke in the 3 classrooms we went into. She wanted to shake the hands of all the kids. So one of the classes was a music class. They were on risers, doing some choral, and she got up on the risers so she could teach the people in the back. Want to make sure she shook every student. Delighted to have her. As I mentioned, she only been to Texas one other time to visit schools a couple of years ago, and she was in Dallas area visiting 2 ISD schools, the first charter. This week on Tuesday, we had the honor of having Chairman Taylor, Larry Taylor, come visit Pasadena Classical. We had a round table, a community lunch. We had about 100 people there. And had 3 students. We had the mayor. The mayor is to the left of Chairman Taylor, mayor of Pasadena. The 2 superintendents, Jason and Erica, and director at Pasadena. Gave him an award for his support this last session of charter schools. He was the, as the chairman, he was the main force behind school finance reform and additional funds being put into and included for children. We heard about 5 weeks ago that TA wanted to nominate one of our schools, Austin Classical, to the Blue Ribbon. And I've got some details on here that shows you what it means. We just were told this week that we could release that to the general public. They've done a press release, but it is a amazing honor when you consider there's only 26 schools each year from Texas that are nominated to the Department of Ed. 26 public schools, that's out of 7,000 schools in the state. And so one of our schools, officially in TEA's register, it's called Vista Academy of Austin, but our signs, our marketing says Austin Classical Academy, the only Texas charter school nominated. That is exciting for Miriam and that school. I want to tell you about an exciting partnership. You know, we have the partnership with Beaumont ISD, Bell Price. We have been approached by Snyder ISD, entered into a partnership with them to run their middle school. Snyder is about halfway between Abilene and Midland, Lubbock. So it's south of Lubbock, a little north of Midland, and if you come out of Abilene, you kind of go up like you're going towards Lubbock, about halfway between Lubbock and Abilene. They have a interest in us expanding that in the second year, potentially into serving and helping with the high school. And so this district went into a 5th year of IR, getting a IR status that they had a cause of the commissioner and TA coming and saying, you're gonna have to partner with someone. And we qualified were the ones that we actually do this kind of work. There are others that would qualify because their size, over 10,000 kids, but those operators, they don't go into turnaround schools. So we're excited we can help these individuals, this community, the superintendent in Snyder. I'll give you an update on it. The federal grant that we applied for a year ago, we received was I think around almost $15 million. That was for Title I schools that we're opening across the state. There were a couple of premieres. There's a new autism school. The rest were Title I schools, classical academy. This new grant we just turned in, we'll know in a couple more weeks, is for $41 million, and it is exclusively for premieres and building out more premieres, 26 of them over the next 5 years, and spending a lot of effort and needing the money to do the work needed for CTE, piggybacking off of what Dr. Cutter just talked about with the whole CCMR, the CTE piece. So if we get this grant from the federal government, we'll be able to infuse that into. All right, that is it. An executive report. Any questions? Okay, we are ready to go into consent items. If you are, Chairman.
I am. Thanks. Are there any changes to the consent items? There's quite a few of them. But,
all standard items. We do have one item that was not placed in your Dropbox. I get the information from STEM, number 10. And what that is, you don't pull that, I understand, but what that is we have applied for the Lone Star STEM Academy, and there is a requirement that we just make a statement, what's they're approving, if you approve that consent item, to align with, we have early college high schools that are part of the same grouping with TEA, and those are called early college high schools. The STEM, years ago, there was a grant and a designation around STEM, the way it has been designated, but for this new piece, that's the PTEC, they have some other verbiage wording that we have to place in our charter. So it's very simple. It's a couple of sentences that will go into the charter document for TEA. And then we would qualify for the grant. So again, if you don't want to approve that, I understand, but if you're okay with what I just described, then that's what we're asking you to approve.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And that's really it. The other 12, everything else, the other 11 are fine and ready for approval.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions about the consent items? No. Does it, somebody make a motion, or do I hear a motion to approve the consent items under E of this agenda, items 1 through 12?
Motion to approve consent items 1 through 12.
Have a second?
Second.
I think Kent got it. I'm going to give it to him. Very good. Does anyone object? Okay, the approval of consent items 1 through 12, or the motion is granted and approved. Consent items 1 through 12. So very good. And we're on to separate items. We've got 4 of them.
You see a lot of, most separate items are related to those.
Yeah.
And that is because we want to make sure you have a chance to discuss and talk about it, just a consent item. So we have 3 on here related to properties Robert's going to speak to, and then number 4, you see this every year. The late winter is submission around the TEA timeline for expansion of TCPA and the Premier High School. So, yep. Robert, you want to start off talking about?
Hey, can we just start with a question on Denton, if that's okay?
Please.
So we looked up there, and Denton had
90
something, but not a huge amount on the waiting list. But you know, it's probably twice that amount, whatever it was.
I think Corinth had 512.
Right. Yep. So Corinth was a bigger, and I know that Denton feeds Corinth. Is that what you said? Or Corinth feeds Denton?
So parents that could not get into Corinth were asking for a school option 5 years ago. We opened Denton. Remember, we purchased property that the city would not let us build on.
Yep.
That was central. It was between Denton, where Denton is now, and Corinth. Denton went a little north of there. We found where another charter had been operating that has one building, a small building, and they have a couple of portables. So when you consider demand, there's nothing attractive about it other than it's school choice. So you at least have this 100 kids on the waiting list, but there's no building. There's nothing nice that's sitting there saying, you know, I come in and look around. So we have found some property that's out off of 35W. Robert has a map that will show you. But I think to your point, yeah, it doesn't look like there's that kind of demand unless you pull in Corinth, which has these people almost 600 on the waiting list as well, to get feed into this other location.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where I was going. It's like, okay, is this, you know, close enough to Corinth? Can we get more value from it and all that stuff? Just want to make sure that that got covered.
Going further from Corinth.
One of the things I want to talk about too,
you might have feeding from Robert, is that right?
I'm going to jump
out in Argyle and going up north.
Over to Denton. Yes, I'll just jump over. But this is, you know, I've always wanted to have an opportunity to be close to 35W over there. There's a company called Hillwood that owns a ton of property out in that area. You guys may run into this when you were looking for property out there as well, but Hillwood is a Ross Perot company, owns a bunch of the land out there. So there's only little bitty pockets of these little bitty pieces of land that come along occasionally that we can jump on. Well, this particular property that we're recommending today. It came up a few months back, and I thought, wow, this is great. This is perfect. This is a great location. It's just for you guys' sake of knowing where it's at. It's north of 407. It's I believe it's one exit north of 407 on 35W. So it's south of the 35W, 35E where they connect in Denton. Yep. It's a little bit south of there, but it's still north of 407. All of that area of that part of 35W, Hillwood, has tons of new home projects that are going to be going up out in that area. So Denton, if you'll, one of these, we had sent this PowerPoint to you, so I'm not going to go through every line of it, but Denton, we found a survey that showed that Denton is number 2 as one of the top boom towns in America right now. A lot of growth up in that area. Also would point out number 10, Round Rock, which is one of the ones we're asking for expansion on in 2021 as well. There are quite a few cities in Colorado, so I think the next state we'll be going into will be Colorado. Anyway, this 20 acres is a great deal. I just actually received a text this morning. We've been kind of going back and forth. There's another developer that wanted it, but we have been right in there working with the owners to say we can, if you guys approve it today, we can move forward with a quick close on it. And I just got a text today that the owner, here at 11:15 this morning, the owner has decided to go with us on it. So it literally is happening right as we're talking about here. So I think this is going to be a great area to have a school. This particular piece of property is not right on 35W because I know they're looking at doing some expansion on 35W with service roads and things like this. So this piece of property is a little bit off of the main exits so that there will be room for expansion. So that shouldn't impact us going forward. So on this map, you can see I-35 and Vintage, which is over here on 35W. You can see the connection right there. That's where we're talking about the piece of property being. The one that's highlighted in red is the property that Chuck was talking about that we had purchased where the city denied our opportunity to go in there. And then Vista Academy, you can see where Vista Academy Denton in the green is right now. So this property is further west over in 35W. A lot of new home constructions are going to be going on around this particular area. And it's only a couple of miles from the school over there. So
were we able to sell that property that we weren't able to build on? Were we trying to?
Yes.
We have attempted a couple of times. Other people have had issues with Denton as well, putting anything on the property. But more later and more.
Having taco trucks.
More.
So the city.
More to come on that.
Somebody else used it.
More to come on that though, because the city did actually change the zoning on that property. So we are thinking that we might actually be able to utilize that property over there in Denton as well. We've talked about feeders and maybe having smaller like K-8s in some areas that could feed into some of our bigger schools. That if we're able to develop out that other property in Denton as well, I'd recommend we put a K there that would feed into these two larger campuses in Corinth and over here on 35W. So today we're asking for the board to approve we're requesting $5 million for the land purchase, architect, and civil engineering. As we get the additional cost on the project with the bids and everything, we'll come back for the second approval on that, as we've mentioned at the last board meeting.
City of Denton.
This is Denton ISD.
City.
I don't know if it's City of Denton or not. I was going to check on that. I never have opportunity to check on it. It is Denton ISD. Yeah. Denton ISD runs down there. But we're asking for the board to approve. The land itself is about 3.6, a little over 3.6. And then we need the civil and the architectural and those parts to start work so that we can get the rest of the due diligence done on construction for building out there.
Yeah, very good.
Hey, Robert, do you think will the people at Vista Academy, will they make the drive to this new location? Or
Yes, absolutely. We moved into this temporary location, and I mean, they have pretty good enrollment considering it's a very temporary location and not that great. I mean, they've got portables, and portables are in bad shape, and the building's in bad shape, and they've really been wanting something out there. I think they will for sure. It's like 2 miles. It's 2-3 miles. I think for sure we won't lose any of the parents we have, and it will definitely open up seats for this almost 900 students on the waiting list. If you look at Denton, Flower Mound, and Corinth, there's almost 900 on the waiting list.
So go back a slide, that sort of shows 33,000 in the area. There's a back area, 33,000 school age. It's set 2017.
Yeah.
It's a big community.
And a lot more coming out that way.
Yeah, that development in that whole area.
Yeah.
It's just.
And we would relocate in. So we would end the lease, portables, all that.
And this would be for a opening in 2022, fall of 2022.
Was Boomtown a television show? Yeah. Interesting.
Any other questions?
Bring a little history in it. Thank me at any time. No questions.
So we're asking you to approve, as stated here, to purchase, the finance, the hiring of an architect for the property. We'll come back to you with, once we put out for bids and everything, we'll come back with a total price for actually building.
Please, that's good. And I'll make the motion to approve the purchase, finance, and hiring the architect, civil engineer, property located in Benton, with the caveat that the details on the amounts will. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Does anyone object? That item is approved and passes unanimously.
Okay. The next one we have up for approval today is Odessa. We, in the federal grant, Odessa is one of the locations. This is the federal grant that's already been approved that Chuck was mentioning a few minutes ago, $15 million grant. Odessa was one of those locations that actually has some dollars in the grant to be able to spend on this campus. So we've spent quite a bit of time scouring Odessa to, typically our strategy is to go into a location in the first 3 to 5 years and find a leased property and then purchase later. The problem with Odessa is there's just not a lot of leased property there, and we've not been able to identify a property that would work for what we need in Odessa. So we are recommending today that we actually consider purchasing this property for the Premier High School of Odessa that would open this fall. You see the number of students that are available in grades 9 through 12. It's almost 5,200 students available in that area. These models, our Premier models, typically have somewhere in the range of 120 to 150 kids. So we were able to identify a building that's a pretty good price. It's a little over $800,000 for the property that we're looking at. And I know that says 1.3 million, but I'll talk to you a little bit about it here in just a second. So we would go in and there's actually the building at the top and the building at the bottom. So it's actually 2 buildings. The building at the bottom, we would be able to do some career technology area. In the school, we'd be able to develop out a career technology area, and then they would have the classrooms in the building that's on the top. So there's 2 buildings. One's just shy of 8,000 square feet. The other one's 5,000 square feet. As I mentioned, it's part of the federal grant. We're requesting 1.3, a little over 1.3 for the purchase and the remodel of the property. And I believe the numbers that I read were somewhere in the neighborhood. If we, in 5 to 7 years, if we had to pay what we typically pay on a lease, it will pay for itself in 5 to 7 years, even though it's a purchase.
And you can use part of that federal money.
That is correct. There is money in the federal grant to do some of the renovations. So, yeah, so we're asking, let me back up. Asking for the board to approve the purchase and remodel of 1.310.
The other dropout recovery school in Odessa has over 400 kids enrolled. So there's definitely demand out. Midland School is what, 30 minutes? I think it's 30 miles between the cities.
If that is correct.
It's around 130. So it should do well.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
Just
No.
curious, what's the breakdown on the purchase price versus remodel on that? How
The
much?
purchase
Yeah.
is about 800, a little over 800. I think it's 810,000 actually, 810, which is under 10, and about 500,000 on the we don't think it's going to take the whole 500,000, but we're asking up to that. But
Do you have to do tornado out there?
we do not, and it is not.
Any other questions?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the purchase finance or remodeling costs for the Odessa property.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Anybody object? Right, motion to approve passes unanimously.
All right, the next one we have up for approval today is Shenandoah Classical Academy. Shenandoah is a small community that is south of Conroe in the North Houston area. This is currently a Christian school that is in operation. It's just off of Interstate 45 on Wellman Road, south of where, I believe, and we'll talk about the expansion, but I believe we already had the board approved purchase of land in the Conroe area. So the Conroe area is to the north of this, where we would be building out the K-12. This would be a location where we would be able to house a K-8 school. And there, if you can kind of see, I know that's a small picture there, but just to the right of that square red box, the property is the square red box, but just to the right of there's some land that is possibly available for purchase. A developer was trying to put in some multifamily homes there that the city denied. And these homes around this area are pretty high-end homes in this area. So we're working on, in addition to this property that we're recommending for purchase, we're also working and having this discussion about the land that's next door. This is about, I think it's on here, maybe on the next slide. You can see the total population, number of families, and all that. There's actually 2 constructed buildings on the property, and then there's some portable buildings that are currently there. We estimate we can get about 250 students in those properties right now, but we certainly want to try to acquire the 2 acres next door because we would like to build another classroom building. This is a gym building here that has a few classes and a library and some science rooms and things on the left side of the cafeteria. Then the other building, which you can see, is a floor plan on the other building that's on the right. So there's 2 buildings. They have about 15 classrooms right now. That we didn't change that right there to. We're actually requesting 5. That 6 is too high. We changed it on the board resolution, so we're actually asking. We are currently at 4.5 on the negotiations with the church school.
How many acres?
It's 6.7, I believe, 6.7, 6.8 acres of land there. So
the plan is we're, as you know, and you approved, we're moving Willis. More than likely, we're moving Willis to Conroe, and you approved that opening as the founders of Sarah North here. This could potentially be where Woodlands moved Right now, they're in a church facility. We just have to see what the demand is. You know, we believe there's enough demand in this North Houston area that you could have these 4 locations, not just 2. But there is some flexibility as we go through this process of figuring out demand. This got rushed at the last minute. We were just debating even yesterday about pulling it, making it a discussion item. But we're hearing back from the church, they're taking this low offer, if y'all approve that today, that it's definitely worth doing forward with. It's $5 million number. So we have a lot of flexibility on options in the space to where the risk is very low compared to some of these other ones where you're going into a brand new community and doing what we did in Frisco, which paid off. But we have so many kids in schools, and we just know there's a lot of kids in other parts of Houston. We're kind of the player on the north side, this wood area. We think it's something we should do.
In this part of Houston, you potentially could pay $3 or $4 million for the acreage, right? Just for the land itself. And the fact that it comes with the 2 buildings, and then it's also got portable buildings on the property already. And the $4.5 million price tag includes all of the FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment. Wow. They're basically wanting all out, so they want so everything in the building comes with it. So,
so just something that's just swirling in my head, and I better get it out before I screw it up. Said this was already a Christian school, and it's going to be repurposed under one of our charters, prep or college prep. And so that's what happens. So are they just trying to get out of the school getting out of the business?
It's closing. Their enrollment's been low in this school.
They did not approach us like El Paso, where they're saying, hey, we're going to close the school. Can you give us an option? They did not approach us in that sense. We found out about it as a purchase. So are those 101 kids or whatever the number was of their interest? Is their interest with?
But still feel like that this is still a good spot for us, good direction for us to go into. And once we put our brand onto it, that it will be more marketable than what, and
yes,
create a good opportunity.
Okay. Yes.
What has happened up here with the founders and the classical and the high school, we want to replicate other places, this family of schools. So there'll be a big, 1,000 student founders just north, but parents want an option. And so having another school that's not going to look like it's all brand new, but it's another location for a different type of program, probably end up being a K-5 classical like Capel, right? Even though it's right next to all these founders and these newer classical schools, it's going to be similar to this. Older building, but still nice. And a lot of parents still want small, not 1,000. Even 1,000 kids is big for them. K-12.
Yeah, and it's close enough that they can feed into. This could also act as a feeder into our middle and high school. We're working on it.
So Robert still has to get down there to see it. We're going to do all our due diligence still through this, but because of the timeline and they're needing to do something quickly, we're asking for approval today and then continue doing all our due diligence. If we decide to buy it, we just approve it. Any questions?
And it is $5 million on the board resolution, by the way, not 6.
Yeah, he said 5, and I was going to ask about that, but I was like, okay, let it go. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. All right. So, any other questions as it relates to no? All right. I will make a motion to approve the purchase finance remodeling cost property located. Oops, wrong one. Reading the button above. Consider approving I make a motion to approve the purchase finance property located at Shenandoah, Texas, and the Shenandoah Classical Academy repurpose. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to give it a Joe. Marvin, you're just a little bit behind. Maybe it's a time zone issue.
Lag. Okay.
Does anybody object?
think they'll find who did it?
Or what was that?
I think it's Marvin's wife objecting.
Sorry, ma'am, you don't have a vote. No, that separate item number 3 passes unanimously. So, I'm going to be curious about that one. Just, the whole thing I think it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just one of those where we see an opportunity, we're grabbing it. It was declining. Will we get some, so what's causing it to decline, and will us going in there change that decline, or will it really create the opportunity?
All right.
Be a telltale for other communities like that.
Yeah, what we usually do so we don't lose the option or the opportunity is we put it under feasibility for 60 days. And then that's where we're going to start to really dive into those kind of questions.
Flush it out.
And really, this came up just about 2 weeks ago. So it's still pretty fresh on. So we still have quite a bit of work on it, but we didn't want it to pass the board meeting. Went ahead and get it if we needed to move.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. All right, on to number 4.
Last thing is,
It's the amendment.
like I mentioned, it's the amendments every winter. It's the TCPA 2021 school year, 21-22 school year, what we're going to be submitting to the TCPA. Purchase property, Conroe, Round Rock, and Prosper. We talked before about Sherman, the demand up there. High School University Park. This is adding a middle school, considering opening a middle school at that location, which was our original high school down there that has over 300 kids in it, dual credit school. Whitewright is a little community between McKinney and Sherman, applied for a charter. The vision behind it is started as a church up there, Cowboy Church. Met with them last week. They have educators involved in the process, have a real interest for their community. They have space for about 150 kids. We do these. We've done Jasper, Crockett, other places, and they've done well with it. So this is still have a lot of due diligence to do on that as far as, tornado shelters, things like that. But we've still got to get it approved by TDA before any of that happens. East Tex Jensen is just adding preschool grades to their campus. And we just talked about that in a second.
Sarah,
And then
what's happening? It's not. Can you go to the next slide? It's got the PHS.
Sure.
This is all the TCPA, and then there's some other slides.
on the Premier, you'll see possibly all of them, but most of them are connected to the federal grant, the existing grant, and then planning for if we do get approved for the expansion grants. See 2021-22, you see those locations. And we're not submitting 22-23 at this time, right?
No. These are the campus numbers that we have to have approval from TEA to submit to. So we're trying to get ahead of the ball game on this, even though we haven't. Most of these haven't been approved in the new federal grant yet, but we're trying to get ahead of this approval for the campus location, so that once that gets approved,
Okay.
We've done these as consent items before. We just wanted to do it as a separate. So if you have any questions, you can ask. But this is what we're proposing to submit to TEA. Not opening all these necessarily, but we're getting approval where we can.
Yeah. Better to be prepared.
Any questions on that?
I know. That's BA. It's good stuff.
Okay. We're asking for approval to submit the.
Do I hear a motion to approve the submission for the 2020-21, 21-22 expansion amendments for the Texas College Preparatory Academies and for the Premier High Schools?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Does anybody object? Okay, motion approves.
Okay. We have a couple of pictures we want to show you here of, I guess, Huntsville. Is that the only one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were done.
I saw Huntsville.
yeah,
My mistake.
This building is now open, moved in.
This moved in January, so, yeah, maybe we need to think about doing a little mini video for you, or get open so you can actually see that what she does.
Sorry, are you still recording, Sarah?
Yes.
But this is the Huntsville Classical. You know, Huntsville Classical was in a church for all the time that we had been there. And that church has been at risk of being purchased by the college that's in Huntsville. So we were able to get this property and build this building pretty inexpensively. You can see it's not fully bricked out. It's got a pretty inexpensive model. So the academic building's on the left, gym building on the right. So it's just open. So,
And are they connected, or is it two separate buildings?
it's actually two separate buildings,
okay.
and there's a driveway between the two. So
And it rained that day.
It rains a lot. That's quite usually. All right.
I was going to show you an inside picture, but
You don't have it?
a remote. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the gymnasium, and then that's the library. Probably get some more pictures for you, but this is just a real quick
That's good.
picture to see.
It has to have a walkthrough video. You're right. The discussion item is dates. This is the format we've been trying to have, which is quarterly meetings. We're asking you to keep the monthly on there, so you don't know what comes up. Trying to do quarterly, they're longer. We do some training associated with it. We are attempting to give you more information than just, hey, we need to buy buildings. So how does this feel to y'all? Do you like the format? Would you suggest any changes?
I'm fine with it. I mean, we're still spending an awful lot of time on buildings, but that's the big thing. And that's one of the big things that we're going to be asked to do, because if we're going to grow, we're going to have to approve expense building buildings.
Please give me feedback if you as individual board members want to do something different. That's it for Texas, unless you have something else.
I don't. So, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned. Right.
All right, we have fajitas here from Las Hendas, doing it on a rotating schedule. So fajitas are up, and we're going to eat for 15, 20 minutes or however long you want, and then go downstairs at the beginning before we do actual training. What interviews? 1 o'clock, what time? 12:30. 30 to 1. How long do we? We might be able to start training if they are done early. All right?
Okay.